P2P, the strongest item in applied energistics, and with the absolute most uses in applied energistics, and yet very rarely seen or very misunderstood by most players. So I decided that I'm just going to make a tutorial on using P2P, subnetworks, and in general, I believe this is technically advanced applied energistics stuff. You wouldn't necessarily find it in other tutorials. I'll be explaining the ins and outs of the game revolving around this lovely, lovely object right here. This amazing, god darn it, this amazing thing called the P2P tunnel. P2P tunnels allow you to transport channels from one controller block through one channel and then out another P2P tunnel. So it kind of works like a VPN in the sense. You get your, if we go ahead and power this on, you get your 32 channels in. As you can see, there are 32 channels going into the P2P tunnel. But because the P2P tunnel is only taking one channel, all these channels are getting packaged as one channel and fed back into the controller block. And then those channels are being extracted again. And then they are being unpackaged by this P2P bus to be used by this dense cable. This is a very, very effective, very efficient way to move a large sum of channels from P2P buses. So if you filled a dense cable with nothing but P2P packaged channels, you would have 1024 channels, and that is a lot. But it is not used, so I'm hoping that this will be helpful. What are the limitations of P2P tunnels? Well, this won't work. So what we have going on here is we have this little controller block here, and we are getting channels and putting it into this P2P, and then we are packaging those channels and putting it into this P2P, and then we are putting them into this controller block, and then we are unpacking the channels coming out of this controller block with this P2P tunnel, and then we are unpacking them again over here. This does not work. You cannot nest P2P tunnels. In order for you, so if you wanted to use the other functionality of P2P tunnels, P2P, so for example, if you wanted to transmit redstone signals, items, fluid, energy, and light, you cannot use P2P tunnels in the same network setup. You won't be able to transport the stuff through the network. So this tutorial will primarily go over using channels. Like the reason why you're seeing this right here, the fact that it's using 3 channels, is because this is technically a separate network because it's actually because this isn't working. So it's technically using 3 channels on a network without a controller block. You can use up to 8 channels, I believe, before you have to get a controller block. Basic things about controller structure. We go and take a look at this. This won't work. You need to not have that there, and then it will work. So if we go ahead and take this, and we do this, and this, and this, and this, that'll work. But you can't have crosses. Normally it should turn white. I think that might be a bug in this version. That won't work. And this won't work either. If you were trying to connect 2 of these together by accident, this won't work. The networks must be separate. So now that we've gone over the basics of how P2P tunnels work and how you can package the channels, let's move on to what you can get out of one singular controller block with P2P tunnels. As you can see here, everything is nicely coded. We have lime going into a green P2P tunnel, which is packaging the signal. And that is going into the controller block. That is going into the controller block over here. Sorry, not over there. This is also P2P tunnel. So it is going in here. But we don't have an output like we do over here. Well, that's because it doesn't really matter. I could have had this coming out of here, and there would have just been 2 channels here instead of the 1 being used. As long as the device has a channel, AE will figure it out properly. So let's go ahead and power this on. Boop. and everything comes to life, as you can see. Channels are being used here, 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 and channels are being used here. But each P2P tunnel is only taking one channel and packaging the dense cable worth of channels and sending them along the cable and into the controller block. Okay. So there's 5 of them, right? So how come there are more than 5 channels coming out of this dense cable? That's what I alluded to earlier. These 5 P2P tunnels over here are all getting their channels from this side of the controller block and this dense cable. If we follow the dense cable, however, these are also linked to this side of the controller block. So effectively, we are using 10 channels from this side of the controller block to get the input of the packaged P2P tunnels, or to get the input of the packaged channels from the P2P tunnels, and to unpackage them on the output of the P2P tunnels. So as you can see, if we look at the green P2P tunnel with the lime green with the lime green package channels, you can see that right here, and we have this right here, and it's using that. It's using some channels. Same thing for this orange. It's only taking one channel down there. It's only taking the one channel, but it is transporting the channels from orange and brown, and likewise for everything else, which is just the basic setup of what you can get from one controller block. This itself is 5 times 32 channels, which I am terrible at doing math at, so I will go ahead and edit that in post. But it's still quite a bit of channels. So as you have noticed, everything is nicely color-coded. You can see all the stuff off into the distance. It is all wonderfully color-coded. We'll get to all the color-coding stuff in a minute. But first, a word of caution. Do not do this garbage. If I go ahead and put this here, it works. You can see we're getting tunnels. You can see we're getting the channels in from this controller block face, and it is being packaged in this tunnel, and then all the channels are being run from their P2P tunnels down the backbone and then into the controller block face, and then the channels are being extracted out here for these P2P tunnels, and then they are getting unpackaged here and used by these drive bays. But you don't know which one of these is which. You have no idea what you are dealing with here. Color code your stuff. Make sure that you know what you are dealing with. Once you start using P2P tunnels, things can get very hairy very quickly. Make sure you know where each one of them is connected, or at least so that you have a general idea. If you ever have an issue, you can use a memory card to relink a P2P tunnel. So for example, let's go ahead and what do we want to do here? I don't even know which one that is, so we're going to go and use one that's colored because the colored one is better. We're going to go ahead and relink this one here. Power it on. We're going to shift click that to change its color a couple times. Wait, is it not changing color? It's not changing color. Damn it. We'll click it to store the color, and we'll put it in lime green channels, but green P2P. Set that as the place to unpackage the channels, and it still works. No big deal. So color code your stuff. So let's move on to some basic designs that you can do with a simple 3x3 controller block. So right here, we have this controller block. There are 8 P2P tunnels per side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they are getting channels from the face of the block that they are on. They are getting 32 channels, as much as a dense cable. And those are being connected in to this dense cable right here, which is feeding it back into this controller block. So if we go ahead and power this on, go ahead and drag this up, and let's put a dense energy cube on that. Everything comes to life. This is powering this right here. And this dense cable is connected to all of these. And it is connected to the inside of this controller block. So the P2P tunnels are getting their power and their channels from here, as you can see. It is recommended that you make use of cable anchors. Anchor, so if we go ahead and grab cable anchors, and I go ahead and I place a cable anchor right here, you should see that AE changes where the channel is going to exit. And it's for peace of mind, really, so that you can see what the hell's going on. So because the maximum channel capacity of the smart cables, or the maximum channel capacity of normal cables, is 8 channels, you can see that it is fully maxed out, and all those channels are being fed in here and into here. None of these are linked, but we'll ignore that. This is fine. You are getting, I believe it's 8 times 6 sides, so that's 48. That's 48 P2P tunnels, which is, I forget how much channelage that is, so I will go ahead and put that equation on screen. But it's quite a bit of channels. And you simply get your channels out by taking this, or by taking each dense cable and dragging it out. God darn it. So it's decent. This could be done a lot better so that you maximize the amount of channels you are getting with each controller block. As you can see on the inside right here, we are actually wasting 4 sides of the controller. And that could be an extra 4 P2P tunnels, which could be an extra, 4 times, that's 24. That could be an extra 24 P2P tunnels per side. 24 times 32 is, I'll go ahead and put that on screen, because I really couldn't care to do that kind of math in my head. That's a lot of channels sitting on the table from this tiny little controller block of 48 times 32 on the screen, and that's how many maximum channels you could have. It is important that you remember to color code your stuff. I can't stress this enough. I will sound like a broken record. Because if you drag, you could theoretically take this. Let's get a lovely little, do I have one of these? Yes, we do. Let's go ahead and take one of these out. We'll go ahead and put the P2P tunnel there. And then we will link this to here. That works, because this is getting its channel from the inside of here, and because this is one controller block, it has access to this tunnel's package channels, because it's being fed along this cable, down here, and into the same controller structure. This will cause confusion if you mix colors. It is recommended that you always keep accurate coloring of where the exit for your P2P tunnels are. So, I'm going to need that, aren't I? Because I do not have any other mods installed. So, let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of a revised version of this cube right here. This cube right here has the total capacity of, what is it? It's the mathematical equation that I mentioned earlier for that thing. I'll go ahead and put that on screen because I couldn't bother to remember it at all. It has the maximum number of channels possible, which is fantastic if you just want the smallest structure ever. As you can see from the visualization, none of these are linked. These dense cables could be completely full of channels, full of 32 channels per dense cable. That is a lot of channels per one of these cubes. You probably will not need more than that. So let's go ahead and power this on, shall we? And if we place an energy cube right here, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? That's simple. We are using a little bit of an advanced technique called subnetworks, and we will go ahead and take a look at this. Actually, this is technically a subnetwork, but we will go ahead and take a look at that over here so that we can understand it a little bit better. So, let's say you have two separate networks. Power these both on. This one is going to be the pink network, and this one is going to be the yellow network. You can send the channels through a completely separate network, which is this one right here, as you can see by following the red line into and the green line into. And this separate network will do the packaging for the channels of this network and this network at this P2P interface. So this means that you don't have to have this loop that you would normally do right here with, let's do this right. This means you wouldn't have to do this. This isn't needed. You could instead just have another one of these. Whoops. Ah, darn it. You could instead have another one of these do this. Double click because you're stupid. And then drag it over here. Actually, you know what? Technically, we could go ahead and do this because this will work just fine. You know, it's fine. We could take this, put this here, and then because this is a thing, it's a little bit of an issue. God darn it. Place that here, and then we can go ahead and link that up. And this P2P tunnel will get its channels from this controller block. I just realized this isn't powered, so we're going to go ahead and power that right now. Boop. So as you can see, two channels are being used. This controller block is giving these P2P tunnels channels, and these P2P tunnels are packaging channels from the pink network and sending them over a completely different network. Normally, if you tried to connect these two, like I showed earlier, by doing this, you will get an error between both networks because you cannot connect both networks like this with cables. Think of this as a virtual private network. Your connection is being taken, it is being encrypted and sent over the private network, and then it is being decrypted by the endpoint to be used by you somewhere else. So what about item storage in this kind of network? This is kind of important. There are going to be a couple headaches. We have a little drive over here with some stuff. It's got a little bit of cobblestone in it. We will go ahead and take a look at that right here. And you might be able to think that because this is going into this tunnel and this tunnel is connected to this network, that if we follow this green cable over here, and whatever's coming out of this tunnel will have access to those items over there. That is the wrong thing. That is not the case. You can see we do not have any cobblestone here. The reason we do not have any cobblestone here is because these are still two completely separate networks. The P2P tunnels act like a VPN. They separate the networks. All they do is package the channels and send them here. While the channels are packaged and they are being managed by another controller block, you cannot read the contents inside those channels. You must unpackage those channels at the other end in order to be able to read the contents. So this leaves us with a little bit of an issue. We can't access our items over here through this kind of network if we have these two separate subnetworks running their channels through this network. And we did that because we wanted a lot more channels, but now we can access it. So what do we do? Well, there is a way to go ahead and access those items. And if you recall, there is a trick with interfaces and storage buses. That's spelled. I actually want the other interface because the block interface is going to be so much nicer. You can put an interface, or you can put a storage bus on an interface, and it will read the contents of a goddarn achievement. It will read the contents of wherever that interface is connected. So, let's put an interface here. Let's put an interface here. Let's put a storage bus here. Let's put a storage bus here. So let's go ahead and do something like this. We'll just drag this pink thing over here. And I will go ahead and do this, god darn it. So this should be given a channel because the interfaces can transport channels. You can see here it's going up. We got our one channel and it is reading the contents of this network. Unfortunately, this network doesn't actually have any storage on it, so we're going to have to go ahead and drag the yellow from this network. That is a grass block. To be able to read the contents of the network with our cobblestone. And as you can see, this doesn't cause an error. Because technically speaking, the storage bus is only interfacing with the ME interface. It is not actually connecting directly to the network. Much the same way as taking this cable and connecting it. See, that still throws an error. So, that is a way you can get around the limitation. The small issue is that, technically speaking, for each of these little networks that you have that are connecting to this network that is routing all of the channels coming from those networks, you would need to link them all, and that can get out of hand really quickly. So, I do something else instead. Here's what I do. Go ahead and get this out of here. I do something else instead. So here's what I do. We can put an interface on the central network. Now what that allows us to do is we can actually, god freaking darn it. Freaking double click. This allows us to be able to interface with the central network. So here's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to grab this cable, and then we are going to actually use anchors because that is going to be a small issue for sure. Darn it. That is going to be an issue. That actually should be fine. So now we have this yellow network interfacing with the with the root network that is providing the ability to package the channels. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing for pink network so that pink can access the root network. Darn it, I need to do this. And there we go. So now these little networks can access the contents stored on the root, or stored on this this central network that these two different networks are connecting to, or are connected to with the P2P tunnels. But we still can't read the contents from each of these other networks. If you go take a look, we still don't have that cobblestone. So the next thing to do is to take one of these. We will go ahead and take this, and we will go ahead and pull this out to here. Actually, I think I should do it over here instead, because this will work better. We'll go ahead and put the ME interface right here, and we will have that controller interface, or use a storage bus on an interface on the pink network. That is the wrong thing to put down. There we go. So now, this network has access to items with, or has access to the items on the pink network. And if you recall, the items from, or the channels from the pink network are being put into this P2P, packaged, run through here, and then out here, because they are linked to this P2P, unpackaged, and then used over here. So that's still the wrong thing. So now we have access to this cobblestone. If you go ahead and take a look over here, we should see that we do indeed have access to that cobblestone. And for sanity's sake, if you want bidirectional compatibility and stuff, go ahead and do the same thing here. Have the network interface. I know I should be using green, but it's, for the sake of the argument. The network is also interfacing with this one over here. This is a much simpler way to do it when you have a centralized network like this and you're using these subnetworks to handle a lot of the items. And then you have them all connected to one block, which is handling all the packaged channels from the P2P tunnels. There is, however, a different limitation that we cannot overcome here, and that would be the fact that you cannot access crafting jobs across the network. So, as you can see right here, we still have our cobblestone. We can take it in. We can go over here. We see that we have no cobblestone. We can go ahead and put that in. Let's go ahead and put in something else. We go over here. We see that, oh, god darn it. We see that the other thing has indeed been changed. But if we go over here to the pattern crafter, you can see that we do not have the ability to craft items. Nothing is craftable. And that is because you must do crafting on the same network, or at least you must issue crafting jobs on the same network that has the hardware. So for example, so to demonstrate this, yellow network has this interface, or has these molecular assemblers with this, what is this called? This is called the pattern provider. Because we are on the latest version of AE on Fabric, and they're using pattern providers instead of interfaces to store the patterns. I digress. It should make it. This will be the same for older versions of Applied Energistics using interfaces. Don't worry about it. So this is connected here, and this crafting CPU is also connected to here, which is getting its channels packaged, or which is getting its channels unpackaged by this this P2P tunnel. Channels are being run through here, and they are being packaged by this one, as you can see, and they are being gotten from this network. So only this network has access to these and these, which is what you kind of need. So if you want to do crafting on that network too, you would need to set up another one of these over on that network, connected somewhere. It doesn't matter, as long as it's on the exit of the, as long as it's directly connected to that network and not directly connected to this network. That's kind of how that works. It is a limitation. You won't be able to issue crafting jobs from here. You have to issue crafting jobs on the same network. So what I do instead is I don't have my crafting jobs on. I don't have my crafting or my auto. I don't have my auto crafting on the subnetworks. I wouldn't have it on here, and I wouldn't have it on here, because these can access items. That's all that I really want them for. I would have a central controller with this and this. So to illustrate my point, if I go ahead and let's go ahead and take this ME interface terminal and let's put it on the green wire here. This green wire is getting its channels directly from the central controller. I don't know why it did that. You can see we can access the cobblestone, we can access the blank memory card. But what if we didn't interface with the pink network over here? Now you can see we no longer have access to the cobblestone. So what I do is I do this setup so that I'm interfacing with each of these networks, and all of them connect to the central network that is doing all the packaging for the channels, for the P2P tunnels. And that allows me to access the items from anywhere and access crafting from anywhere. This is a little bit of a limitation since this is using one channel. This is a bit of a limitation since this is using one channel from the side of the controller block. But if we had a P2P tunnel here instead, we could be transporting 32 channels. So you do lose out a little bit, but overall it's a lot more of a friendly way to manage your subnetworks and then your one centralized network for which everything is connected. So now that we've gone over how to use the subnetworks, we can come on over here and we can troubleshoot why the hell this thing turned freaking red. And if we take a look, well, this is connected to here, which is fine, but oh dear, this is connected to here, which is also connected to here. There are P2P tunnels on the inside here, so they're not, this isn't actually connected to this controller structure. So it is bridging two networks, and that is the other thing you do need to be careful of. While the energy cell does not require channels, it will transport channels. Most blocks will transport channels, I believe. I believe most of the AE blocks transport channels, but they only transport 8 channels. So you do have to be careful about that. So let's go ahead and break that. And instead, let's put that down here. Okay. Online, ready to go. Place this here. Ready to go. Place that here. Good. Go ahead and do the rest. Boom, 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 and boom. So, all of these are working exactly the way that they are supposed to. This is a simple 9x9, or not 9x9. This is a simple 3x3x3 cube. I can actually go ahead and show you the design super easily. This is the basic design here. I don't know why I'm getting double clicks. Shouldn't be getting double clicks. It's rather obnoxious. This is the design here. The P2P tunnels are on the insides here, as well as on the outsides. Right. This is the design. So, per side, we get the 12, we get the 4 on the inside and the 8 on the outside. We can have this many dense cables worth of channels, and as you can see, it works just fine with no strings attached. So what about accessing that crafting that you wanted to access earlier? Surely, because you are using a separate subnetwork, and then taking the unpackaged channels and pushing them out this interface, it should not work. Well, remember what we said earlier. This is still part of the blue network. So, it doesn't matter, because the package channels are being moved by this controller block itself. The package channels are being moved by this controller block. So you won't be able to access them from this blue network, or you won't be able to access them from directly attached to the blue network, but you can access them from the unpackaged network after the P2P tunnel exit. So if we have a P2P tunnel, we could go ahead and link this P2P tunnel with here, and then you would have access to your crafting as long as it is directly connected to this cube. So if you connected any crafting stuff to any of these channels here, it would work. You'd be able to access them from any of these channels. You just wouldn't be able to access them from before the exit of the P2P tunnel, because the channels wouldn't be unpackaged yet. That would technically still be this network. It wouldn't be this network here. If you are playing 1.12, I believe you do have something called a network visualization tool. Go ahead and use that thing. That is fantastic. If you are using the subnetworks and root networks, it will clearly define for you what is, or which is which network. Unless you use our last example over here, which we are going to go ahead and use, because that is probably going to be the best solution for most people. So, now that we've seen this, this is taking the channels from these 12, putting them in here, and the 12 are being redistributed, or the 12 are being unpackaged by these P2P tunnels here. So what about this over here? This is a rather simple, what is this? This is a 7x3x7. I think it's a 7x3x7. It is a 7x7? 7x7. So, 7x3x7 controller. As you can see, there are no subnetworks here. This is all one gigantic controller structure, and it is recommended that you keep one gigantic controller structure, since that will just make your life so much easier. If you're making a stupidly large network, you might need to make use of the subnetworks, but for the sake of the amount of spaces you still have, remember, I could move this up, I think, I could move this up another 4 blocks, and I could get so many more channels out of it. So you really shouldn't need anything larger than that. So, as we can see, everything here is individually addressable. We have our light blue, we have our cyan, we have our green, we have our brown, we have our pink, and we have our, what is this, magenta? I think it's magenta, right? Magenta, yeah boy, it's magenta. Alright. So, this is all one giant network. And if we take a look at the number of channels, or the number of P2P tunnels that we have, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And all of these P2P tunnels are getting their channels from this one controller structure. As you can see, they go into this fluix, or they go into this dense fluix here, and then they get put into the controller structure with this dense cable. Now, because I'm friggin' stupid, I actually forgot to put the friggin' anchors on this thing so that you can actually see when this shit happens, because I'm dumb. So we'll go ahead and fix that right now. There we go. All these, so there's 8, 16, 24, 32. That is one full dense cable worth of channels that is going into here and being put into the system. All of these 32 P2P tunnels on the top here are being packaged and put back into the system. So let's go ahead and power it on. And the whole thing should just come to life without any errors. Yes, it does. Fantastic. I honestly was expecting it to throw a couple errors, but you know what? It actually worked just fine. First try. That's... Woo! I win. Let's take a look. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in there. 16 maximum, 16 going... 8, excuse me. 32 maximum, 32 going in. My bad. So that's light blue. And as you can see, it doesn't matter where we extract the light blue. Light blue could be extracted over here. Light blue could be extracted over here. Light blue could even be extracted from here. It doesn't matter. As long as it's coming out of the same controller structure, you can just pull those channels out. And because these 32 channels are packaged channels, while it may only be 32 channels that we are putting into this quantum entangler, we actually get 32 times 32 channels from one quantum entangler, because you can unpackage the quantum entangler, because you can unpackage those channels over here, which I did not link up because I'm friggin' stupid. So you can go ahead and unpackage these channels here. So you end up with 1024 channels per quantum ring, but only 32 packaged. So, with this structure, we have our light blue, we have our brown, we have our lime green here, we have our turquoise here, we got our pink here, and we have our magenta. That is, frick. That is 6 times 32. That is 6 times 32 times another 32 for each P2P tunnel, or for each P2P tunnel packaging channels. That is a lot of channels. That is somewhere on the order of like 6,000 channels. I'll put the correct calculation on the screen. You'll see it in post. And that is all contained within this controller block. So everything is color-coded with this design. As you can see, we have red, orange, yellow, and green. We also have it going into dense light blue. So, we could identify, if we head over to light blue, I don't know where light blue is. Light blue is over here. Actually, let's use light blue. If we head over to light blue, we could set up a light blue. It would be a P2P tunnel for light blue. Actually, this won't work, so we're going to have to use another color because light blue is not hooked up. I did not put the singularity inside the quantum entangler, so we're going to have to use another color. Let's use magenta. So as you can see for magenta, we have it connected to red over here. We have it connected to orange over here. And on the inside, you can see it is connected to green up top and yellow at the bottom. So, we could get magenta. Connect that here. Put a P2P tunnel there. And then we could get ourselves the card, which, here it is. Here's the memory card. We could get ourselves one of the cards. So, for example, we have, let's grab magenta green, shall we? Actually, yeah, magenta green, which is on the top here, I think. Let's go ahead and link that. We copied that creation. We'll be able to go ahead and put that here. That is now connected. And then let's go ahead and put, let's go ahead and put a drive. Now, for the sake of doing this properly, we are going to go ahead and color code this. So we connected to green. So we're going to use the dense green cable. We are going to connect this here. So now we can see from the quantum ring that we are drawing from magenta over there. And then we are unpackaging something from green. The downside about this that you are actually seeing right now is you don't know which green. There's 8 options. There are different ways to do this and better ways to do this so that you actually know which P2P tunnel is coming from. This design sort of gives you an idea. It's between 8 P2P tunnels if you have to troubleshoot. As long as you keep track of things, you should be able to like match the colors and stuff. And if you always need to relink it, you could just shift click on the tunnel, and then go click on the interface if you have to, or go click on the exit tunnel to load the configuration so that you don't have to deal with those issues. Almost like a hard reset. But it gives you an idea. So this is nicely color coded. It is not working right now. Let's go ahead and put it in a drive. I believe it's called storage, because it's freaking storage parts. Let's go and put a storage part. Let's go and put in a storage part. There we go. They are not online. And the reason they are not online is because the ME quantum ring requires power. So what you're going to have to do is get a... you're going to have to get an energy cell from Applied Energistics. Is there a difference between either of these? There is. This one's charged and this one's not. So you're going to have to go ahead and put an Applied Energistics cell here. And I don't think this is going to come to life. Primarily because this Applied Energistics cell, it needs to have a little bit of juice in it. So if we go ahead and get a cell that has juice in it, like this one that is at 100%, it should successfully start up this quantum tunnel. And as you can see, we get our one channel for this P2P tunnel. Comes along here. It is being unpacked by this P2P tunnel, and it is being used for these drives from the green over there. Now, while you might think that this is kind of garbage, like you have to give the quantum rings power, you kind of don't. They only need the power when you connect. So once they are connected to the network, they will actually get power from that cube over there. So it kind of just needs the power to jumpstart. If your network just stops working because you actually took your central network offline, you might have this little bit of a problem right here. In which case your network will not start up because the quantum ring isn't ready. Actually, you can see the quantum ring is ready because it got jump started by the power. the quantum ring should end up filling up this cube eventually with energy from that network over there. So if you can't connect for whatever reason, go ahead and check the energy cell that is next to it. If it's empty, go ahead and give it some power. Place it back down to this ring, or place it back down next to the ring, and it should end up having power, and the ring should then provide the channels and be self-sustaining. So that's it. That should be the total. That should be everything for using P2P tunnels and applied Energistics. I plan to show off the other two channels, but it really doesn't matter. You get the idea with these four. You can see that this will transport 32 package channels, which you can unpack into another 32 of these P2P buses, which in itself turns into 32 channels. You do that math, that's 1024. So this is 1024 channels, this is 1024 channels, this is 1024 channels, and this is 1024 channels. And those two, this is also 1024 channels, and this is also 1024 channels. Just from this thing alone, you have a lot of channels, and it's all localized on this network. So you don't have to worry about any of that subnet garbage over there. But it does exist in case you need to expand your network even further. And this concludes the tutorial. I will go ahead and link I believe it's the FTP Reddit post for my network that I made. It is significantly larger than any of this. I wasn't able to copy paste it in. But it makes use of all the features you saw. It makes use of the P2P tunnels. It makes use of the subnetwork tunnels. It makes use of the storage bus and the interface design, so that you can access your items from anywhere. And the way that crafting is set up is that it's actually on the central network, packaging all the channels for these different subnetworks. You'll see it in the description. Go ahead and click on the links. They're all pictures. I don't know why Reddit removed the preview of pictures. It's super obnoxious. If you got any questions, throw them in the comments. I guess you can ask on MC Eternal if you want. The name's Cube, and see you later.